Philip Cohen, who was a sociologist, demographer that I spoke to in just outside Washington DC, in Maryland. That's the particular place. So it was quite a whirlwind couple of weeks of going to lots of different places. But yeah, he was kind enough to have us out to the university campus there and to speak with me. And yeah, his strongly held position is that generations, as we usually use those terms and those labels, are mostly bunk, right? Yeah. It is useful to recognize that people have different experiences based on when they are born and when they go through certain life experiences, for example. So, probably the period at which you finish school and do or don't go to university, and what the job market is like at that point is going to have like a reasonable effect on your life chances after that. So whether you go through that in 2005 or 2009 makes a big difference. Whether you go through that in, 2017 or the middle of the COVID pandemic, that can make quite a big difference to your life. And there's kind of two ways that can be really useful of measuring those things. One is with a uniform block of time. So we go, everyone that's born in the 1990s, everyone that's born in the 2000s, everyone's born in the 2010s, or you want 5-year divisions, whatever you want to do. The other, and sort of the original idea of generations, this book called The Problem of Generations, which came out sort of early 20th century, was that sort of big world historical events really affect how certain people experience the world, right? So the First World War, for example, people who were of, I guess particularly men who were of a fighting age in 1914, that's quite a unifying experience in which maybe the age that you are becomes as or more in some ways important than maybe other factors. So suddenly the fact that one of you earns twice as much as the other, and another period in time, that might be really, really important. In that moment in time, you've both just spent however many years in the trenches or whatever, and suddenly actually when you're born becomes a really key part of your identity. And so that can be really useful as well, right? We might talk about a COVID generation. We might talk about multiple COVID generations in terms of, young people who were at school during COVID, where that has been had massive impact on their schooling and their education. We also might talk about, people at other ages who have gone through COVID, and that's affected their lives in different ways. Our current way in which we talk about generations is sort of neither of those things, with the exception of the boomers, which maybe we'll come back to. But Generation X, Millennials, Gen Z, Generation Alpha, I think is the thing we're going.
The skibbities.
For.
Yeah.
They're pretty arbitrary in terms of how they're measured. They're different lengths of time. One of Philip's things was that the length of a generation is going down because if you're someone who is either a demographer and maybe you're an academic, maybe you're a kind of marketing person, naming the next one is really good. Like that's really cool, isn't it?
Cool,
like being the person who was like, we're going to call it this, pretty good. So like people are kind of like, when can I get away with being like, this is generation blah, blah, blah. Even within that though, I sometimes see some quite funny comments on the internet, like people talking, people are like, oh, I'm an elder millennial, or I'm a young Gen Alpha or whatever. And you're kind of like, well, okay, well, if you've decided that the category is really, really important, and then you're sort of subdivide, like at what point are we just like, I'm 32 years old. Yeah. And we're just back at the beginning.
I was born in May.
I'm dead.
But we do live in a time broadly where identity feels like a really thing that is really important to people, and as a kind of nail in the ground of who we are. And I think that's probably the case at any point throughout history. But this seems to be one of those things that people have really stuck to. And part of that, I think, is that we do, any times are tumultuous in some respect, aren't they? But it does feel that, particularly in terms of life chances and life opportunities and kind of experiences of life that just feel as though we are living through a rough patch, as it were, where when you were born can be a really big factor in terms of what your experience of life and particularly, I think, stability is.
This was a clip from our chat with YouTuber Tom Nicholas. To watch a full episode, click right here.